Now let's get started with the afternoon session. Our first guest speaker, she is a conservative author, policy expert, and communication professional. And she was very much involved in the last general election. And to my knowledge, as many of you might have already known, she's a very vocal supporter of President Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ying MA.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is always a bit difficult to be the first speaker after lunch. I will try to keep you all awake. Anyway, it is a great pleasure and a great honor to be here with you all. I began my own sort of true political activism over 20 years ago in 1996 in California. And at that time, California was undergoing something actually not too different from what the Harvard lawsuit has brought about. In 1996, there was a ballot initiative in California that prohibited the use of race in public contracting, public employment, and most definitely public education. And when that ballot initiative passed, we saw some concrete results in the state of California. Very selective universities like UC Berkeley, UCLA were no longer allowed to discriminate on the basis of race, and in particular, they were no longer allowed to discriminate against Asian kids on the basis of race. And we have seen in the years since the percentage of Asian students at those selective California state universities go up, and I was very proud to have taken part in that historic effort. But I do remember at that time that when I went to talk to Asian communities all over California, there were always all kinds of Asian representatives who claimed to speak on my behalf and who claimed to speak on the behalf of Asian Americans, and yet they were often folks who knew not very much about first-generation Asian Americans, and this problem was particularly prevalent in the Chinese community, and that is that the people who are out there writing op-eds, appearing on television, and speaking about politics, engaging in activism, oftentimes they are very far removed from the immigrant experience, far removed from the language that immigrants speak, and that certainly should not deter us from trying to find common ground, but I also think that part of culture and part of politics really is about language, and it really is about relating to people who have a certain set of experiences. And so for that reason, I'm very grateful to be here with all of you, because I think for far too long in the American political debate, folks like you, people who have come here, who have made sacrifices, particularly in the areas of education, people who have worked diligently, who believe in merit, oftentimes your voices have not been heard, and that for far too long, groups like the CAA did not exist, and the voices like yours have not been heard. So I am thrilled to be here with you all. Now, one reason why I'm excited to be with a group like you is that over the years in my political activism, I've noticed that the longer an Asian immigrant has been, or the longer that a family has been in this country, the more likely it is that this particular Chinese person or Asian person will be brainwashed by America's brand of identity politics. And identity politics is precisely the stupidity that fuels the racial preferences that you see at Harvard University, and it is precisely the stupidity that fuels the discrimination against Asian Americans. And I think that what you guys have done with an organization like this certainly is a great achievement. What we will see on Monday, and as a number of other speakers alluded to earlier, is that Harvard University's anti-Asian bias will be on trial on Monday. And for far too long, elite universities like Harvard have justified all kinds of complicated schemes of racial discrimination by invoking precisely the concept of diversity. Now, what I will say is that as stupid as the concept of diversity is, there is actually an even greater stupidity, and that is Asians for affirmative action, Asians for diversity. Harvard has in fact used this stupidity to defend itself. It has pointed to some 35 Asian American groups in higher education faculty who have filed an amicus brief in support of Harvard's discrimination against Asians. Harvard has also pointed out that over 500 academic experts on Asian American studies, race, and access to education have submitted amicus brief supporting race-conscious college admissions used by Harvard as well. And then on top of that, when you read mainstream newspapers with broad reach, national English newspapers here in this country, you will find time and time again that there are Asian Americans writing opinion pieces in those newspapers or magazines declaring their steadfast devotion to racial preferences. And so, according to these Asians, they say that diversity benefits everybody, including the Asian kids who are being discriminated against. And these Asian activists regurgitate exactly the same nonsense that Harvard University regurgitates in order to defend its racism. It is all a load of crap. And ultimately, for universities like Harvard, racial diversity really is just about identity politics. And what is identity politics really about? It is about grievance. And in turn, that grievance provides an excuse for racial discrimination against different groups. So, in this paradigm, the more aggrieved you are, or the more aggrieved you are perceived to be, the more entitled you become to racial preferences. And in this world, Chinese Americans can never win. Why is that? Because Asians rank at the bottom of this identity politics pecking order. We rank at the bottom of this grievance pecking order. Simply put, Chinese Americans are just not perceived to be all that aggrieved, and they were never, ever perceived to be as aggrieved as other minorities such as African Americans. And so the only way that Asians can actually benefit from these so-called preferences in the paradigm of identity politics is to become more aggrieved. And hence, you will find that a lot of the Asian defenders of racial preferences run around saying that actually, affirmative action should be more focused on certain groups of Asians. And they point out that in the 2010 US Census that 60% of Cambodians, Laotians, and Hmong Americans lack a bachelor's degree. And more than 50% of Vietnamese Americans do as well. And so the defenders of affirmative action will tell you that, okay, well, in fact, affirmative action is not only a great thing, but it should be something that is doled out more often to these groups of Southeast Asians. The question you might want to ask is, what if you're Chinese? What if you're Korean? What if you're Indian? And the answer from these defenders of racial preferences is that Harvard can freely discriminate against you if you're in that category, because if the administrators at Harvard believe, as they surely do, that there are already far too many of you at Harvard, then there's no reason why they can't slash your numbers and make sure that you only get in according to their concept of what your proportionality is in the American population. So we come back to the idea of grievance. The more aggrieved you are, and the more unsuccessful you are, the more likely you will be considered deserving of preferences in a diversity scheme. But I am pretty sure that most of us came here as immigrants, and if you were born here, and if your parents or grandparents came here as immigrants, you didn't come here to be more unsuccessful. You did not come here to be aggrieved. You came here to pursue those opportunities that were not available in your home or native land. And being aggrieved is absolutely the last thing this community should strive for. We should actually aspire to succeed, and I have no doubt that you all aspire to succeed. And so, in that paradigm, nobody is entitled to an elite education, but that's why we're fighting for fairness, and it's why we're fighting for fairness instead of preferences. So, certainly we hope that with the case, the lawsuit against Harvard, that we will see some more explosive, damning evidence of the university's racism, but certainly we will also hope that history will change here once again, as it did in California in 1996, that the completely morally bankrupt idea of racial diversity in elite university that has been used as a code word, that has been purely an excuse to discriminate against people of different races. We certainly hope that that will end, or begin to end. But I also want to, I think the law is the law, and the law oftentimes moves at a very slow pace, and there are all kinds of things that can be legal, even if they are immoral. And so I do want to end by saying that I think for a community like ours, that we should begin to talk not just about the numbers, not just about the actual racism that Harvard engages in, and that the actual racism that a lot of other elite universities engage in, but to begin to talk about the moral bankruptcy of the idea of diversity. It is a legalized way of discriminating against different people. It is a phony concept. And grave injustice has been committed in its name. And we ought to stop it, we ought to reject it, and I am certainly heartened by the political activism in this room and by what your organization is doing all across the country. I wish you all the best, and I will be cheering